What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to One on One, a KC Sports Network podcast. Mike DeVito here with 9-year NFL veteran and KC Chiefs Super Bowl champion Jeff Allen. And we're here to bring you all things Chiefs football from a player's perspective. And this is an important one because this isn't, I think, an episode we expected to be having this early, but we got the first loss, Jeff, the first W, tough game on the road in Baltimore. We talked about how it was going to be difficult. And we'll go into it more today, recap that, and then talk about the Chargers coming up, talk about what it's like for a player to go through a tough loss like that, and we'll get into all that information. But before we do, our sponsor, Cookie Society Cookies, man, every time I talk about it, my mouth just starts watering, man, Jeff. I don't know how you do it being in that house, but Cookie Society ships nationwide. Make sure to check them out, cookiesociety.com. Best cookies you're going to find out there. And you can go right on your computer and get them delivered to your house. So check them out, cookiesociety.com. Thank you to our sponsor. Big Jeff, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing a little bit better, man. You know, It's Tuesday for us, so the Monday blues are gone after a big loss. But, you know, looking forward to getting the win going into playing the Chargers.
Yeah, man, we're going to get going, get playing those guys and put a whooping on those boys. But let's recap this game real quick. Jeff, there are a number of things we can talk about. Obviously, We'll focus on the defense playing the run, and I want to sort of work back what I said the past couple of weeks about not having to worry about stopping the run and qualify that statement a little bit. But from an offensive perspective, obviously 36 points, a lot of good stuff, difficulty with turnovers at important times. What was sort of your overall assessment of the offense against the Ravens on Sunday?
Yeah, I would say overall it was a good day. They did a lot of good things, scored a lot of points. But ultimately, they turned the ball over in some critical situations that turned the game. I mean, the interception Pat threw kind of gave them life and gave them momentum. And then heading into, possibly kick the game-winning field goal, we had the fumble. So those were two critical turnovers that kind of, gave them life. And, they – give them credit, They made the most of those turnovers and they made them count.
Yeah, and that's the key. That's the key. I was curious about what you thought about because what I have seen some pushback on social media about Andy Reid running the ball at the end there with that last turnover that obviously changed the game. And this kind of reminded me back in 2000. Remember the 2015 season when we were up on the Chargers, or we were tied. And we were about to go into overtime. Coach Reid ran it, and Jamal fumbled it.
They returned it for a touchdown.
Yeah, that was the Broncos.
I don't think. We wouldn't be talking about this if the ball wasn't fumbled.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's just leave it at that. He's calling the plays as he sees them. We just crossed the 2-minute mark. You don't want to leave too much time on the clock. For Baltimore, they were gashing our defense the entire game. So he made the right football decision by keeping the clock running. Yeah, you can give it to Pat, let him throw a short pass or something like that. But that's not a guarantee. I mean, it's close to being a guarantee. That's the completion. But the safest thing to do is to run the ball. And as a professional football coach and as a professional player, it's your job to hang on to the ball, especially in a critical situation. So there's no pointing fingers here. There's no one to really blame. What's done is done, but I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this one kind of caught me off guard, which is why I wanted to lead with it, because it seems so much different than not that I disagree with Coach Reid's play calling in 2015 with that situation, but obviously that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. This seemed like that was clearly the right call, and so I just was surprised. That's why I brought it up. I was just a little bit surprised to see that. People were questioning that when it just seemed, like you said, where you're at in the game with the time left, it just seemed like the right call to make. And so I'm glad you clarified that, because I was like, maybe I'm not seeing it right. Maybe
he put it in the offense's hands.
Right.
Unfortunately, there was a turnover, but the best thing to do in that situation with the way that the game was going was to leave as least amount of time on the clock as possible. And that was the direction they were heading in before the ball was, turned over.
Right. Talk to me about the sort of the run game. I think there was certainly some success, but maybe not the success up front, or not just up front, but on offense in general, running the football. What did you see? Was it just good, bad? Was it just that there weren't as many runs as you'd normally see? Or
I just think it wasn't as many runs as you normally see. I think they didn't really get into a groove. I don't think it was terrible.
No.
They didn't give up too much penetration. They did give up penetration on that play where Clyde fumbled. I know everyone was pointing fingers and stuff, but there was penetration. I mean, the guy was pretty much unblocked. They got in the backfield and got his hand on the ball. But outside of that, I think they did, the most of what they did have.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember too, I think you and I had gone through the schedule earlier in an earlier podcast earlier this year. And we talked about sort of if there's one game that you highlight and say, yeah, that's a game the Chiefs could lose, it was the Ravens.
Yeah.
I mean, you look this
defense. I knew it was going to be a tough game. Yeah. I thought we would pull it out, but I talked about it last podcast. I knew exactly how Baltimore was going to come out. I knew how big of a game it was for them. Starting off the season 0-2, that's not a good way to start. So for them, I'm not saying that it wasn't important for the Chiefs, but for them, it was almost more do or die, backs against the wall. And sometimes it's good to lose games like this, especially early on, because you learn a lot about your team. You learn about how you're going to bounce back, your perseverance, and it's a different team. I know this team's been in Super Bowls. The nucleus is the same, but there's a lot of new parts. So they have to learn how to lose so they can win. Failure is a good thing when you can turn into a teaching moment.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, before we turn over to the defensive side of the ball, let's give another shout out to our sponsor, Tickets for Less. Looking to score an unbeatable deal on Chiefs tickets? My friends at Tickets for Less have you covered. Locally owned for more than 17 years, ticketforless.com has the best selection of Chiefs tickets for any game, all without the outrageous taxes or per ticket service fees you find at any other sites, which can really be insane when you look at it. Yep. Plus, you can use your exclusive KCSN promo code from Tickets for Less to save even more. Use code KCSN21 at checkout to save big on any Chiefs order at ticketsforless.com. That's KCSN21. So check them out, Tickets for Less. All right, Big Jeff, let's go over to the defense. This is obviously, as a defensive player, your offense puts up 36 points. You got to win that game. And the past 2 weeks I've talked about this since the beginning, how when you're thinking about being a player on the Chiefs defense, it wouldn't make sense to spend a ton of time worried about stopping the run. Teams that are coming in to play you, places that you're going, they're scheming for Patrick Mahomes. They know they have to score. They have to score a lot. They have to score fast. And so, to think that they're going to come in 23 personnel and just run power and ISO, that's crazy. And to prepare for that just wouldn't be rational. At the same time, geez, you can't be giving up 18, 20 yards a clip on a run, because if you give teams that's going to be a problem. Now, when I look at this last game from a defensive perspective, this was the perfect game plan to go against this new Chiefs front, right? We talk about Chris Jones. He's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Can rush the passers, got great get off. How fast and how quick he can play on the outside for a big guy is unbelievable. Can play all three positions. The one way to take advantage of Chris Jones in that end spot is to isolate him in the zone read and make him have to make those decisions and stop Lamar and all those guys, those speedy guys on the edge in space. I don't care who you are. That is, for an interior lineman, that is a difficult task. That is really hard to do. And you could see when I was watching Chris play a number of those plays, he diagnoses the play correctly.
Yeah.
And if he was D Ford speed, he would have no problem closing in on the quarterback or on the back. But he's not. He's 6'5", 315 pounds. I mean, it's hard to close that distance. And so I think that you got to tip your hat to Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. This game plan reminded me a lot. And I didn't put this together until I just looked before the show. But in 2012, when I was with the Jets, we were playing the 49ers. And this was Colin Kaepernick's breakout game. And I remember the Niners were running plays against us that looked very similar to what the Chiefs were seeing. I thought, wow, I've seen this before. Like, where have I seen this? Come to find out, Greg Roman, the OC with the 49ers in 2012, is now the OC with Baltimore. And so, and again, looking at this, it's the perfect way to isolate Chris Jones and take him out of the game. You put him in a really difficult spot. Nobody can make those plays. I mean, no lineman, defensive lineman that big is going to be able to make those plays in space. But then you saw the double pulls, the double unbalanced look, right? The Chiefs didn't adjust to in a short yardage situation. That's killer. You're in a short yardage package, right? Almost like a goal line package, and you have one of your ends, your big ends, outside of their tight end on the unbalanced, away from the unbalanced side. That you're dead. I don't care if you have the greatest players in the world. You're outmanned 5 people on the other side of the football. And then again, we were talking about before the show the double pullers and the crazy reads, and you could see it as the game went on. The backers were really having trouble diagnosing what was going on. So you got to tip your hat to them. I mean, did you see that the same way? Because I was like, wow, this is tough.
Yeah, I definitely saw it the same way, and I think it's a copycat league. So a lot of teams, the first 2 weeks of the season, they see, Chiefs aren't doing too well against the run. So what other team's going to do? They're going to try to run the ball. But I think that's a bad idea. Mm-hmm. The reason why, then this is the silver lining for me, and this is me not overreacting. We played the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens.
Right.
How are they set up? What are they designed to do? They both have big O-lines. They both have a great running game. I mean, Lamar is essentially the running back in Baltimore. Cleveland, it was Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But they're designed to run the ball, and that's what they're outfitted for. So for other teams to try to do that, that might not be the best thing for them because they might not have the personnel to do that. So
right.
I think that's the silver lining in it. But at the end of the day, nonetheless, we got to figure out a way to stop the run.
Right.
I mean, your film is your resume. It's out there now. So teams are going to try it. So the best way, stop teams from doing that is to week after week shut it down. So they're like, okay, maybe that was just because it was Cleveland and Baltimore. But until that's on film, they're going to be seeing a lot of runs.
Yeah. Well, this is a perfect week to bounce back coming up because the Chargers, I don't think, have rushed for over 100 yards in the last 2 games. So This is a perfect week for them to bounce back. But there is another sort of aspect about this that I want to talk about because, again, this game plan also reminded me a lot of 2013 with Chip Kelly and the Eagles, Mike Vick at quarterback, LaShawn McCoy. We go out there in week 3, right? And we've been preparing for this zone read type of offense. And they basically did the same thing to us at that game, right? I mean, Mike Vick had 150-something yards. And I remember they ran a certain play, and you had told me before, but it was called some sort of inline veer where I was at 3 technique, right? So I'm over the guard. And just like what happened with Chris Jones happened to me over the guard where the tackle and guard split. And now I'm reading Mike Vick, who's looking at me and getting ready either to run at me or hand it out to LaShawn McCoy. And they crushed me. I mean, I hesitated. They handed it off, and it was gone. Mike Vick was gone for 70 yards. And that breaks my heart as a guy who's a defensive guy to think of that. It just absolutely breaks my heart. But the one thing I wanted to talk about was when you look at the final score of that game, they only had 16 points. So 250 yards rushing was a bad day, but we only gave up 16 points. Now, when you look at the Chiefs, they've given up 7 rushing touchdowns over the past 2 games.
Is it 7?
Oh, was it? I think it was. Maybe
I didn't realize it was that many. I thought it was less. Dang.
Yeah, 7 rushing touchdowns. Let me just double check to make sure, but I'm almost certain because I took a picture of these notes. Just thought, wow,
that's not good.
Yeah, most rushing TDs allowed. Chiefs 7. 8 other teams are tied for 3. It was at 3. So 7 rushing touchdowns is bad, right? So you can give up all these yardages in the field and all that stuff, but when you get into the red zone and you get into that, that area, that's a different mindset, right? That's when things got to really turn on. Get your bigger guys in there, fundamentals down, and you got to keep them out of the end zone, right? You want to keep them to field goals, make them throw to score. You don't want teams running the football, and that is just as demoralizing as it gets. And yet the Chiefs, have really struggled with that over the past 2 weeks. And so that's another thing when it comes to this run game. I go back to the past couple podcasts where I've talked about don't worry about the run. You can't have these big runs of clip, and you can't let them run the football in. And that's just, again, look, I played 9 years in the NFL. You couldn't pick me out from some 300-pound guy at the bar drinking beer. There's no difference, okay? It doesn't take a lot to stop the run. It really doesn't. It's really a mindset. You got
mindset, gap control, do your job.
Yes, do your
job.
That's it.
It's that simple.
Get it. I look at these guys that are in there now, this defensive line. I wouldn't have made this team. These guys, the practice squad guys are better than I am. But you can just tell they're not playing gap sound. They're not playing technique sound. They're not in accord with the backers. I remember every game I was talking to DJ and those guys in Tamba and 50, Justin, where are we at? What are you seeing? Are we on the same page? You have to be in one accord with those guys. It's key. You see these runs where, linemen are getting caught inside and backers are running way outside, and there's these massive gaps that backs are taking advantage of. You gotta get the mindset right. I know Coach Reed and those guys are going to be on them to do that, and you got to be in communication with the back end. But the big story is this, and I tweeted this out. This is all fixable stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like,
definitely fixable. I think you have to have some urgency, of course. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest issue is, like you said, gap control, but also guys need to anticipate a little bit better.
Right.
That split second that you're taking to think and you're not processing the way you're supposed to. Offensive lineman's to the second level and blocking the linebacker.
Right.
You're not expecting a double team. You're getting blown off the ball. Those little things that are within, the game plan affects every single level of the defense. And now you have running backs getting up to safeties untouched, and now they're having to make tackles. And listen, DBs, tackling is a part of their job description,
right?
But they're not the best tacklers. We know that a DB can be in the box, and as an offense, we'll make the other guy the point to intentionally leave that guy unblocked because the running back's job is to make that guy miss, run him over. He's a DB. Right. He's the least likely to make the play. So that's our take on it as offensive players. We love to have DBs, out in space, one-on-one. Linebacker, defensive lineman, getting penetration, linebacker out, making a play. It's likely to happen. But a DB, we like our chances there.
Right. No, that's it. So you got to get that fixed. These guys got to get that fixed. And just one last thing, and I'm not trying to over concerned here, but I think these are variables that you got to pay attention to. You got to get this stuff fixed quick. So I remember when I was in the Jets, this was prior to the old, which is now the old CBA, but back when you can have full padded practices in December, and we had one bad rushing game, and Rex Ryan made everybody put on pads, and we went out there and got after it training camp style 2 days in a row. And you better believe we got the run fixed. Now, after week 7, you don't have a lot of opportunity. There is no 2 days in pads.
No.
And at some point, there's no days in pads. And so the tackling, stopping the run, all that stuff that you and I have talked about on here, how important it is to be in pads, especially for the linemen to get their fits. They got to fix that stuff quick because you only have a few more weeks, in pads where you can actually get after it before you're going to have to take those things off. And then once you're in spiders, it's hell to try to fix that in spiders. Yeah. So sense of urgency there. Okay, so we'll get into the Chargers and all the things that, we're looking forward to because I know this team's going to bounce back. I would hate to be LA coming into Arrowhead this week. But I do want to touch on one thing that I think could be interesting for our fans. And you and I can speak to it from perspective now that we never could in the locker room. And that's how frustrating it can be when one side of the football isn't living up to isn't doing their job, right? Yeah. Isn't holding their own. And, you have one side playing at an incredibly high level and the other side being such a detriment that you're losing games because of it. So, Jeff, talk to me, brother. What's that like? What is that like?
It could become toxic. And there's never going to be an even football team. There's always going to be one side of the ball that's better than the other. But when you're playing on teams where it's clear that you have a top offense or defense and a bottom of the league offensive defense, it's fingers start to get pointed. Right. But man, if we were better on this side of the ball, we'd be in the playoffs or we'd be a contender. And it, there's some funny things that happen, man. I don't want to spill all the things, but I played for some teams where I've been on some bad offenses, and the defense talk crap to us in practice and say, "You guys suck," or vice versa. So everyone has to hold up their end of the bargain. We've all had group projects, right?
Yeah.
How does it feel to prepare for a group project and that one person doesn't hold up their part? They come on the day of the presentation, and all along you've done all the work. They say 2 words, and they get credit for it. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I didn't experience this in Kansas City. We were even. I mean, we were very even in Kansas City when I was there.
Yeah.
When you and I were there, those early years.
Not my first year. We sucked offensively. I mean, we sucked all around, but offensively we were really bad.
Yeah, but when Alex got there, you guys were hell on wheels. I remember playing you guys in training camp, thinking, "Oh my goodness, this is awful." But my last 2 years in New York with the Jets, 2011, 2012, the offense had 52 interceptions, I think, over the course of those 2 years, and we still had top 10 defenses. And I just remember how, over those 2 years, how frustrated we were getting, where it got to the point where Rex Ryan had to bring us together, the starters on defense, and say, "Look, like we're working hard, like try to keep your cool." Now, I remember, and I'm not somebody who I don't say much, especially about something like this. But I remember, man, Jeff, we weren't even off the sideline from a 3 and out, and all of a sudden, defense back up. It's like, listen, just keep us out there, because I'm more tired running over to the sideline. Just let us go on offense, so I don't have to run back and forth. I just remember being so mad. And so you fight it, but that can build, But here's the key. And here's what we didn't have in New York that they do have in Kansas City is great leadership. You got guys like Pat Mahomes. You got guys like Travis Kelce.
I was just about to say that. Teams that I was on where we did that, we didn't have great leadership, and we were bad football teams. It doesn't matter if we were good on one side or ball the other. Right. We never came together. And the good football teams, they come together. They have great leaders, and I think this team, they have it, and they're going to figure it out. Right. And they're going to hold each other accountable while doing it. Right. I know they're competitive, so in practice, it's going to be some things said. There are going to be some words said.
Right.
But it's going to be positive, constructive in ways where the team can get better, not in ways where, it's just going to fester and be toxic and things go the opposite way. I think this will be a good thing for him.
Yeah, Jeff, you're totally right. I mean, when I think about it, I can't picture a toxic Chiefs locker room with the guys that they have. Like it's almost impossible to even fathom when when Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes and Chris Jones are leading your team. It isn't going to happen. So that's not something you'd have to worry about. But I did think it'd be fun to bring up because I know you and I hadn't experienced that before. All right, moving forward, we got the Chargers. Talk to me about what it's like as a player coming off one of these really difficult losses, and now you have to rebound and get ready for the next week, and not only rebound for another game, but an in-conference game where you're going against a team that it's really going to be important to bounce back and win. What is that? What was your process like to bounce back from these games?
The game couldn't come fast enough. I was looking forward to that next game. The moment we step off the field after a loss, especially if I didn't play well in the game. If it was a game where I didn't play well, or if there was a critical play where it was one of those plays, there's like 4 or 5 plays a game where, God, if we would have did this, we'd have won it. If I was one of those plays, man, I couldn't sleep the entire week. I was waiting to get back out. I was laser focused throughout practice. I always prepared well, but my preparation went through the roof. I was making sure that I wasn't going to be the guy next week. I was holding other guys accountable. I was doing everything in my power to make sure that next week would be a win. It's not a lot of pressure. I know it sounds like a lot of pressure, but that's just the way we operate as professional athletes, especially super competitive athletes.
Yeah. No, I remember the video guys used to hate me, especially if we had a game where we lost and I thought I did something that, was bad or detrimental. Yeah. I was like this every game, but especially after a loss like this, I was on them. I got the film when our coaches got the film, right? So you know how we're flying back from a game, and the coaches will get the breakdown right away. The media guys have that cut up and to them, the video guys. I had one of those iPads where as soon as that thing was cut up, I got it so I could watch it.
Yeah.
My anxiety was so high that I had to see it, and I would watch bad plays over and over and over, to the point, Jeff, now where I think if you were to put a game in front of me over my 9 years from any point, I could remember the bad plays that I had in that game.
That's all I remember. That's
all I remember. I don't know. I can't remember one good thing. I can't. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I actually did, but I know I did a ton of stuff wrong.
It's the gift and the curse, man. It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah. It was a gift because like you said, we were back to work to fix that, and you couldn't wait to get to the next game to get that right. But you don't forget about that stuff now. But yeah, I think that's right. And I also remembered having to sort of, the paradox of this is you have to move on, right?
Yes.
So you have to get to the next, you have to get on to the next opponent. And you have to be able to put the bad week behind you, flush that after film on Monday, and move on. And I know for a lot of younger guys, that can be tougher. For the older guys, you just end up getting used to it. But that's going to be key. The teams that really struggle are the teams that let one loss, multiply into 2 losses and the 3 losses, because they just can't get out of that funk. You got to put that stuff behind you and move on. And again, this Kansas City Chiefs team is a team that's clearly going to be able to get that done because of the leadership and the guys in that locker room. So we got the Chargers. I think this is a great game to bounce back. I know the Chargers have shown some good stuff. Coach Reed talked about how they're explosive, but like I said, under 100 yards rushing in both games. It's a great time to get the defense back on track. It's not like you're going into another Baltimore, another Cleveland.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity to get better here. Any closing thoughts, Jeff, before we get going?
Yeah, I think this is a good rebound game. Defensively, they're going to have to stop their weapons on the outside. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, a quarterback who's a great young quarterback. I think he's tremendous and has a really bright future, and is one of the guys that's the future of the league. But defensively, I think we should be able to do enough that the offense has opportunities to score a lot of points, because defensively, I don't think San Diego is that great. I mean, I think they're all right. They got some good pass rush. They got Joey over there. Right. But I think in the back end, I don't know if they can keep up with our wide receivers. So if that offensive line gives Pat time, he's going to put up some points. So
this is one of those games that you don't have a secondary. You just call up and say, "Hey, just take it." Well,
yeah. So
see you later.
I think it'll be a good day for the entire team, and it'll be good to get that bad taste out of their mouths. But you got to do it. I know we're talking about it right now. We can envision what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, they got to go get it done.
You know it, brother. Perfect game for it. Hey, Big Jeff, thank you for everything again. We'll see you all next week, Chiefs Kingdom, on another episode of One on One. Good luck to the Chiefs this weekend. And again, we'll see you next week.
See ya. Go Chiefs.